The great chamber was silent. 217 species had gathered here on the station called Pale Horizon, and not one of them made a sound. Ambassador Vel stood at the center platform, his forearms trembling as he held up the images for all to see. 300 million dead, Vel said. His voice broke. 300 million of my people. Burned, slaughtered. The Drell Empire shows no mercy and accepts no peace. The images floated above him like ghosts. Cities on fire. Ships falling from the sky. Children running through smoke and ash. Vel had watched his world burn for 6 months. He had begged the Galactic Council for help. He had followed every rule, every protocol, every ancient law of civilization, and the Council had done nothing. The Drell had violated 17 treaties, Vel continued. They have committed acts that your own laws call crimes against existence. And yet you sit here. You watch. You do nothing. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates looked away in shame. Others simply stared with cold, uncaring eyes. War was common in the galaxy. Species rose and fell like waves. The strong survived. The weak did not. This was the way of things. Vel took a deep breath. He knew what he was about to say would change everything. I have a proposal, he said. The Tyranny Collective wishes to hire military assistance from the Sol system. We wish to employ human soldiers. The silence that followed was different from before. This was not the silence of boredom or indifference. This was the silence of fear. Delegates who had been half asleep suddenly sat up straight. Eyes went wide. Several species began speaking urgently into their communication devices. One delegate, a small creature covered in blue scales, actually stood up and left the chamber entirely. At the highest seat in the room, the figure slowly rose. High Arbiter Cora had lived for 3,000 years. She had seen empires born and die. She had witnessed wars that burned across entire galaxies. Her body was thin and ancient, wrapped in robes that seemed older than most civilizations. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of ages. Ambassador Vel, she said softly. Do you understand what you are asking? Vel lifted his chin. I am asking for help. The humans are warriors. The humans, Cora interrupted, are not warriors. She raised one long, pale hand. The images of tyranny suffering disappeared, replaced by something else. Something older. 40 years ago, Cora said, there was a small conflict near the Kepler system. 2 species fighting over mining rights. A minor dispute. The next Federation, hoping to end the conflict quickly, hired a single battalion of human soldiers. 300 humans, nothing more. The new images showed a green and blue world, beautiful, peaceful. This was Kepler 2 to be before the humans arrived. The image changed. The world was now gray and black. No oceans, no forests, no life. Just a dead rock floating in space. This was Kepler 2 to be 3 weeks later. Gasps filled the chamber. Vel felt his heart sink. The next one there war, Cora continued. But there was nothing left to win. The humans did not simply defeat the enemy. They erased them. Every soldier, every civilian, every child. Every building, every ship, every record of their existence. And when they were finished with the enemy, they turned to the Nex and asked a simple question. She paused, letting the horror sink in. They asked, Is there anyone else you want us to kill? The chamber was frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. The Nex paid them and sent them away, Cora said. They never spoke of what happened. They never hired humans again. 3 years later, the entire Nex Federation collapsed. Not from war, from guilt, from nightmares. From the knowledge of what they had unleashed upon the galaxy, Cora looked directly at Vel. Her ancient eyes held no anger, only sadness. Humans do not fight wars, Ambassador. They end civilizations. They do not understand the concept of limited conflict. They do not accept surrender until they decide the war is over. They will burn worlds, crack moons, and poison stars if they believe it necessary. And the worst part, she leaned forward slightly. They will sleep peacefully afterward. They will go home to their families, kiss their children, and feel no guilt at all. Because to them, war is not a tragedy. It is a task, a job to be completed, and humans always complete their jobs. Belle's voice was weak, but they could save us. They could save you, Cora agreed. And in doing so, they might destroy half the galaxy. The Drell have allies. Those allies have allies. Humans do not care about politics or alliances. They care about threats. And once they start identifying threats, they do not stop until every threat is gone. She sat back down slowly. Resolution 77B exists for a reason, Ambassador. The Human Exclusion Act is not meant to insult humanity. It is not meant to limit their freedom. It is meant to protect every other species in this galaxy from the consequences of human involvement in our affairs. This warning is not for their protection. It is for yours. Vel stood alone on the platform. His proposal died in his throat. He had no more words. No more hope. I withdraw my proposal, he whispered. A wise choice, Cora said. The Council will continue to monitor the situation and apply appropriate sanctions. Sanctions. More words. More waiting. More death. Vel gathered his things and walked out of the chamber. He did not look back. High above the main floor, in an observation deck reserved for station workers, a man stood watching. His name was Deho, and he was human. Deho was not a soldier. He was just a cargo pilot, delivering food and supplies to the station. He had stopped to watch the council session out of curiosity. Now he stood frozen, his recording device still running in his pocket. He had heard everything. The fear in their voices. The horror in their eyes. The way 200 species looked at the mention of his kind like children hearing. Stories of monsters in the dark. Deho had served in the military once, long ago. He had seen what humans could do. He had done things himself that he tried not to remember. He had told himself that chapter of his life was over. But watching Vel walk away, broken and hopeless, something stirred in his chest. Something old. Something dangerous. He turned off his recording device and walked slowly back to his ship. The galaxy had made its choice. The Council had spoken. Humanity would not be involved, but Deho knew something that the Council did not. Rules only mattered to those who followed them. And somewhere out there, in the dark spaces between stars, there were humans who had stopped following rules a long time ago. He just had to decide if he was willing to find them. 6 months had passed since the council meeting. 6 months of fire and death and endless running. Una pressed her back against the cold metal wall and listened. Somewhere above her, Drell soldiers were searching the building. Their heavy boots made the floor shake. Their voices were loud and cruel, laughing as they kicked down doors and dragged people into the streets. She held her younger brother close. He was only 12 years old, but he had learned not to cry. Crying made noise. Noise brought death. Stay quiet, she whispered into his ear. Do not move until I say. His small body was shaking, but he made no sound. Una was 26 years old. Before the war, she had been an engineer. She had designed water systems for small villages on the outer colonies. She had lived a simple life. A good life. She had believed that the galaxy was basically fair, that the Council would protect innocent people, that wars happened to others but never to her. She had been so foolish. The Drell had come without warning. Their ships had filled the sky like a swarm of insects. Their soldiers had poured out in endless waves. The Tirani military had fought bravely, but bravery meant nothing against such numbers. Within weeks, the outer colonies had fallen. Within months, the capital itself was burning. Una had watched her parents die. She did not like to think about how. Now she lived in the ruins of her own city, hiding like an animal, stealing food from destroyed stores, sleeping in broken buildings. Every day was a fight to survive. Every night brought new horrors. The boots above them grew quieter. The soldiers were moving away, no, Una said. Quickly, she grabbed her brother's hand and ran. They moved through holes in walls, through tunnels that had once been subway stations, through paths that only survivors knew. The city was a maze of destruction, but Yuna had learned every corner of it. She had to. Learning was the only way to stay alive. They reached the extraction point just as the sun was setting. A small shuttle waited in the shadow of a collapsed tower. Other refugees were already climbing aboard, their faces empty and broken. Yuna pushed her brother up the ramp. Get inside. Find a seat. Do not talk to anyone. She was about to follow when a voice stopped her. You're the engineer, aren't you? Yuna turned. A human man stood nearby, leaning against a pile of rubble. He was not tall, not particularly strong. He wore simple clothes, the kind a cargo worker might wear. But his eyes were sharp and watchful, taking in everything around him. Who are you? Yuna asked. Her hand moved toward the small knife hidden in her belt. My name is Deho, the man said. I've been running supplies to the refugee stations. Medicine, food, that kind of thing. I saw your name on a list. Yuna Engineering Specialist, ESR Prime University. Nothing. Deho shrugged. Just curious. Most engineers either died in the first attacks or got captured to work for the Drell. You survived. That's impressive. Yuna did not feel impressive. She felt tired and scared and angry. So very angry. Why are you here? She asked. Why is a human running supplies to Tirani refugees? Your council made it clear that you want nothing to do with our war. Deho's expression did not change. The council speaks for governments. It doesn't speak for me. How noble. Yuna's voice was bitter. You bring us food while we die? You give us medicine while the Drell burn our children? Your people could end this war in days. I have read the reports. I know what humans can do. But you choose to stay neutral. You choose to watch. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Yuna stepped closer to him. She was shorter than him, but her anger made her feel tall. You have the power to help us. You choose not to. Everything else is just excuses. Deho was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a communication unit, old and battered. You're right, he said quietly. Earth's government won't help you. They have rules, treaties. They are afraid of what might happen if humans get involved in alien wars again. And honestly, maybe they should be afraid. He pressed the device into Yuna's hand. But there are humans who don't follow those rules. Soldiers who were kicked out of the military because they were too good at their jobs. Fighters who made Earth's government nervous. They live out in the dark spaces now, taking jobs that no one else will take. Yuna looked at the device. What is this? A frequency. And a name. Captain Seok. He leads a group called the Wake. If anyone can help you, it's him. Why are you telling me this? Why not contact him yourself? Deho's eyes grew distant. Because I know what they'll do. I served with men like them once. I know how they think, how they fight. If you bring them into this war, the Drell will lose. That's certain. But you need to understand what you're asking for. I'm asking for my people to survive. No. Deho shook his head slowly. You're asking for the Drell to be destroyed. There's a difference. Survival means running, hiding, waiting for the war to end. What the Wake does is not survival. It's annihilation. They don't stop at victory. They don't accept surrender. They keep going until there's nothing left to fight. He looked at her with something like pity. Are you ready for that? Can you live with that? Yuna thought about her parents. She thought about her friends, her neighbors, her teachers. She thought about 300 million Tirani who had died while the galaxy watched and did nothing. Yes, she said. Her voice did not shake. I can live with that. Deho nodded slowly. Then use the frequency. But remember what I told you. Remember that I warned you. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the ruins. Yuna stood alone, holding the device in her hand. Somewhere in the distance, Drell ships were bombing another part of the city. The sky glowed orange with fire. She looked up at the shuttle. Her brother was watching her through a window, his small face pressed against the glass. He trusted her. He believed she would keep him safe. Yuna climbed aboard the shuttle. She found a seat in the corner and held the device close to her chest. She would use the frequency. She would find Captain Seok. She would bring humans into this war. And if the galaxy burned because of it, then so be it. The galaxy had earned its flames. The moon had no name. It was just a dead rock floating in the empty space between star systems, far from any trade routes or colonies. It's a kind of place that appeared on no maps and attracted no attention. The perfect place to hide. Yuna's small shuttle approached slowly. She had traveled for 3 weeks to reach this location, following coordinates that changed every few days. Twice she had been stopped by patrol ships and questioned. Twice she had lied convincingly and been allowed to pass. Now as the gray surface of the moon grew larger in her window, she began to wonder if this was a mistake. A voice crackled through her communication system. "Unknown vessel, state your business." Yuna took a deep breath. "I am looking for Captain Seok. I was given this frequency by a man named Daeho. I am Tirani. I need help." Silence. Long, uncomfortable silence. "Then land at the following coordinates. Keep your hands visible when you exit your ship. If you try anything clever, you will die before you understand what happened." Yuna did exactly as she was told. The base was hidden inside a crater built into the rock itself. From above, it would be invisible. Only when Yuna walked through the main entrance did she realize how large it was. Tunnels spread out in every direction, lit by soft yellow lights. She could hear voices echoing from somewhere deeper inside, laughter and conversation. A woman was waiting for her at the entrance. She was perhaps 40 years old, with short black hair and a kind face. She wore simple clothes, nothing military about them. She looked like she could be a teacher or a farmer. "Hello," the woman said warmly. "You must be tired from your journey. Would you like some tea?" Yuna blinked. This was not what she had expected. "Yes, thank you. My name is Hannah. I handle supplies and logistics for our group. Come, let me show you around." Yuna followed Hannah through the tunnels, still unsure what to think. She had expected hardened killers, cold-eyed soldiers who radiated danger. Instead, she saw ordinary people. In one room, a young man was playing a card game with 3 others. They argued loudly about the rules, laughing and slapping the table. In another room, a woman was tending to small plants under artificial light. She hummed softly to herself, carefully watering each one. In a third room, 2 men were cooking something that smelled delicious. One of them waved at Hannah as they passed. "I don't understand," Yuna said. "These are the soldiers I've heard about, the ones that the entire galaxy fears." Hannah smiled gently. "We are just people. We eat, we sleep, we have hobbies." "Jin over there," she pointed to the young man playing cards. "He likes to paint." "Bora, our demolitions expert? She is teaching herself to play the violin." "We are not monsters, but the stories. The stories are true." Hannah's voice remained calm, but something changed in her eyes. "When we work very seriously, do what needs to be done. But between jobs, we try to remember what it means to be human. Otherwise, we would lose ourselves." She led Yuna to a small room with a table and 2 chairs. A pot of tea was already waiting. "Captain Seok will see you shortly," Hannah said. "Please, rest." Yuna sat down and poured herself a cup. The tea was warm and slightly sweet. For a moment, just a brief moment, she felt almost peaceful. Then the door opened, and Captain Seok walked in. He was older than Yuna had expected, perhaps 55 or 60, with gray hair cut short and deep lines around his eyes. He moved slowly, carefully, like a man who had learned to conserve his energy. He wore no uniform, no symbols of rank, just plain clothes, simple and worn. He sat down across from her and poured himself some tea. "You are Yuna," he said. "Daeho told me you might come. You know Daeho? We served together, long ago, before everything changed." Seok took a sip of his tea. "He said you were brave and angry. He said you want revenge. I want my people to survive." Seok studied her for a long moment. His eyes were not cruel, but they were not warm either. They were the eyes of a man who had seen too much. "Let me explain something," he said. "The Wake has 300 soldiers, 300 humans against the Drell Empire, which has millions of troops, thousands of ships, dozens of conquered worlds. By any normal measure, we should not stand a chance. Then why would I come to you? Because we do not fight by normal measures. Seok leaned forward slightly. I will ask you one question, and you must answer honestly. Do you want us to help you survive, or do you want us to help you win? Yuna frowned. What is the difference? Survival means defense. Protect your refugees. Evacuate your civilians. Slow down the Drell advance. We buy time. So eventually, maybe, the war ends through negotiation or exhaustion. Many of your people die, but some survive. He paused. Winning is different. Winning means we go on offense. We do not wait for the Drell to attack. We attack them. We break their supply lines, destroy their bases, kill their commanders. We make them afraid to sleep. We make them afraid to eat. We make them afraid to breathe. That sounds like what I want. You haven't heard the rest? Seok's voice grew quieter. When we go on offense, we do not stop. We do not accept surrender until we decide to accept it. We do not show mercy until we decide to show it. The Drell have killed millions of your people. If we fight them, we will kill millions of theirs. Soldiers, yes, but also workers. Families. Children who never chose to be born into an empire of murderers. He looked directly into her eyes. We will burn their worlds. We will break their civilization. We will make them wish they had never heard the name Tyranny. And when we are finished, there will be nothing left of the Drell Empire but ash and memory. Yuna's mouth was dry. Thought of her brother, still waiting on the refugee station. She thought of her parents, dead in the streets. She thought of the council, sitting in their great chamber, doing nothing, while her people screamed. You could do all that, she whispered. 300 soldiers against an empire. We have done it before. Siak's voice held no pride, no boasting, just simple fact. It's not against the Drell, but against others. The galaxy does not tell those stories because they are too frightening to tell.
Ow.
But they happened, and they will happen again, if you ask us. Yuna closed her eyes. She saw the faces of everyone she had lost. She heard their voices, calling out for justice, for vengeance, for peace. She opened her eyes. Win, she said. I want you to win. Captain Seok nodded slowly. He finished his tea and stood up. Then God help the Drell, he said quietly, 'cause no one else will. Commander Telas sat in his war room, surrounded by screens showing the glory of the Drell Empire. Conquered worlds, massive fleets, armies that stretched across star systems. For 300 years, no enemy had stood against the might of Drell. They were conquerors, destined to rule the galaxy. The Tyranny had been simple prey, weak, soft, too trusting of the Council and its useless laws. Crushing them had been easy. A few more months, and the last of them would be gone. Then the reports started coming. Commander, his aide said nervously, we have lost contact with Forward Base 7. Telas frowned. Technical problems? Unknown, sir. All communications cut off at once. No distress signals. No warning. Telas waved his hand dismissively. Send a patrol to investigate. Probably just equipment failure. But the patrol never reported back. In the next night, 3 more bases went dark. Then a supply convoy vanished. Then an entire orbital station stopped responding. At first, Telas assumed it was Tyranny resistance fighters, desperate survivors making their last stand. He sent his generals to hunt them down. The generals did not return. 2 weeks after the first incident, Telas received a message. It was short, just a few words broadcast on an open channel that every Drell ship could hear. We are the Wake. We are just getting started. Telas did not recognize the name. He ordered his intelligence officers to investigate. What they found made his blood run cold. Humans, sir, the lead officer reported, his voice shaking. 300 human soldiers. They were exiled from Earth for being too effective. 300. Telas laughed. We have 3 million soldiers on Esor Prime alone. 300 humans are nothing. With respect, Commander, That is what the next Federation thought. That is what the Kaleri Dominion thought. That is what a dozen other powers thought before they were destroyed. Tila stopped laughing. The attacks continued. Every night, something was destroyed. A fuel depot. A communications relay. A troop transport filled with 500 soldiers. The Drell military tried to respond, but they were fighting ghosts. The humans struck without warning and disappeared without trace. Jin, the young sniper, became a legend among the Drell. They called him the Shadow Eye. He could hit a target from distances that should have been impossible. In one battle, he held a defensive position alone for 11 hours, killing over 200 enemy soldiers before reinforcements arrived. Bora, the demolitions expert, destroyed a weapons platform the size of a small moon. She did it with a single shuttle and, according to survivors, some creativity. No one knew exactly what she had done. The platform simply broke apart, its pieces falling into the planet below like burning rain. Hannah coordinated everything from the hidden base. Her supply lines were invisible, her movements unpredictable. Drell commanders spent weeks trying to track her patterns, find some logic in her movements. There was no pattern. There was no logic. There was only efficiency, cold and perfect. Commander Tilas grew desperate. He assembled his elite soldiers, the chosen of Drell, 10,000 warriors who had never lost a battle in 400 years. He sent them to corner the wake in an asteroid field near the border. Surround them, Tilas ordered. No escape. No mercy. I want those humans dead. Chosen of Drell moved in with overwhelming force. They had ships, weapons, numbers. They had everything they needed to win. The battle lasted 6 hours. When morning came, the asteroid field was silent. 10,000 Drell soldiers, the pride of the Empire, were gone. Their ships drifted empty, their bodies floating in the void. Only one soldier was left alive. His escape pod sent drifting toward Drell space. Tilas personally met the survivor when he arrived. The soldier was young, barely old enough to fight. His eyes were empty, his hands shaking so badly he could not hold a cup of water. What happened? Tilas demanded. Tell me everything. The soldier stared at nothing. His voice came out in broken whispers. They were everywhere, Commander. In the darkness, in the shadows, we could not see them. We could only hear them. Footsteps, breathing, sometimes laughter. They were laughing while they killed us. How did they fight? What weapons? Everything. Guns, knives, their bare hands. One of them, a woman, she was shot 3 times. She kept fighting. She killed 15 of our men before she even stopped to bandage her wounds. And she was smiling. Smiling, Commander, like it was a game. The soldier looked up at Tilas, and there was no sanity left in his eyes. They do not fear death. They do not feel pain like we do. I watched a human soldier use his own body as a shield to protect his friend. He took 7 shots to the chest and still managed to kill 3 of our men before he fell. And his last words, ... double quotes, what were his last words? He looked at his friend and said, finish the mission. Not avenge me, not remember me, just ... Finish the mission. Like dying was nothing. Like it was just another task to complete. The soldier began to cry. They are not soldiers, Commander. They are not even warriors. They are something else. Something worse. They fight like they have nothing to lose. Like death is just an inconvenience. How do you defeat an enemy who is not afraid to die? Tilas had no answer. The reports kept coming. Drell colonies were surrendering without a fight, their governors begging for mercy. The Imperial fleet was retreating, refusing to engage. Generals were resigning, admirals were deserting. The great Drell war machine, undefeated for centuries, was falling apart. And through it all, Yuna watched Captain Seok had allowed her to stay, to observe. She saw the planning sessions, the mission briefings, the quiet moments between battles. She saw humans laughing and crying and praying and doubting. She also saw what happened when the laughter stopped. Before each mission, something changed in their eyes. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something cold and focused. They became machines, perfect and terrible. And when they returned, covered in blood and ash, they would sit quietly for hours, not speaking, not moving, processing what they had done. Does it bother you? Una asked Hannah once. The killing? Hannah was silent for a long moment. Yes, she said finally. Every death, every life we take, it stays with us. We remember all of them. Then how do you keep going? Hannah looked at her with those kind, terrible eyes. Because someone has to. Because the universe is not fair, and sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to destroy those who hurt them. We carry this weight so that others do not have to. It is not pleasant. It is not heroic, but it is necessary. She returned to her work, tracking supply movements, calculating distances. The Drell made their choice when they attacked her people, she said quietly. Now they will live with the consequences, or they will not live at all. 6 weeks. That was all it took. 6 weeks for 300 humans to break an empire that had stood for 3,000 years. 6 weeks to turn the mighty Drell from conquerors into refugees. 6 weeks to show the galaxy what humanity was capable of when it stopped following rules. Commander. Tila stood before the Galactic Council, his uniform torn, his face thin with exhaustion. Behind him, images showed the destruction of everything he had built. Drell fleets burning in space. Drell colonies abandoned. Drell soldiers surrendering by the millions. You must stop this, Telis demanded. His voice cracked with desperation. The humans have committed crimes against every law of civilized warfare. They have destroyed cities, killed civilians, shown no mercy to those who surrendered. This is genocide. This is evil. You must intervene. High Arbiter Cora sat in her ancient chair and said nothing. We warned you, she said finally, her voice cold. Resolution 77B exists because we learned long ago what you are only learning now. Humans do not fight like us. They do not stop when they have one. They stop when the threat is eliminated. Permanently. Then eliminate them. Tila screamed. Use your fleets. Use your armies. Stop them before they destroy everything. Cora shook her head slowly. And risk bringing humanity's attention to us. No. The Council has survived for 10,000 years by knowing which battles to fight. This is not one of them. She leaned forward, her ancient eyes fixed on Tila's. You chose to attack the Tyranny. You chose to ignore our warnings. You chose to believe that human involvement was just a story, a legend to frighten children. Now you will face the consequences of those choices alone. Telis fell to his knees. Please, I am begging you. My people, my civilization, everything we have built should have been considered before you burned 300 million Tyranny civilians. Cora's voice held no pity. The Council will not intervene. This session is closed. The chamber emptied. Telas remained on the floor, broken and alone, far away. On the Drell throne world of Kalos Prime, Captain Seok stood before the Imperial Palace. The great building rose into the sky like a monument to arrogance. For centuries, emperors had sat inside, ordering wars and conquests. Millions had died because of decisions made in those golden halls. Now it was quiet. The guards had fled. The servants had hidden. The emperor himself waited inside, surrounded by his last few advisors. Hoping that surrender might still be possible, Coek walked forward slowly. Hannah was beside him, along with Jin Bora and a dozen other members of the wake. They were tired, wounded, covered in the dust of 100 battles. But their eyes were still sharp, still focused. Una walked with them. She had stayed through everything, watching, learning, understanding. She had seen the wake at their best and their worst. She had seen them save children from burning buildings and kill soldiers who were trying to surrender. She had seen them laugh and cry and pray. She had seen what humans truly were. The doors of the palace opened. The Drell Emperor emerged, surrounded by his advisors. He was old, older than Tila's, with the marks of power carved into his face. He had ruled for 70 years, expanding his empire, crushing his enemies. Now he looked small and afraid. "I offer surrender," the Emperor said. His voice trembled. "Full and unconditional. The Drell Empire will withdraw from all Tyranny territory. We will pay reparations. We will sign any treaty you wish. Please, this war must end." Captain Seok stood silently for a long moment. The wind moved through the empty streets, carrying the smell of smoke and ash. "No," Seok said quietly. The Emperor's eyes went wide. "What? You do not get to surrender." Seok's voice was calm, almost gentle. "Surrender is for soldiers. Men who fight for a cause, who follow orders, who do their duty. You are not a soldier. You are a murderer. I am an emperor. I acted for my people, for our future. You ordered the death of 300 million civilians." Seok's voice grew harder. "Children, elderly, families who had done nothing wrong. You watched it happen. You celebrated it. You called it Gloria." He stepped closer to the Emperor. Yuna's parents died in the first attacks. They were teachers. They helped children learn to read. They never hurt anyone in their entire lives. And your soldiers burned them alive in their own home. The Emperor tried to speak, but no words came out. "There is no surrender," Seok said. "There is no treaty. There is only justice." He turned to Yuna. She stood among the humans, her face unreadable. She had dreamed of this moment for months. She had imagined the satisfaction she would feel, the closure, the peace. But looking at the Emperor now, she felt only emptiness. This old man had destroyed her world, killed her family, ruined millions of lives. And he was nothing. Just a scared creature, begging for mercy he had never shown to others. Seok's eyes met hers. "This is your choice," he said. "Your people. Your vengeance? What do you want?" Yuna thought of her parents. She thought of her brother, still waiting for her on the refugee station. She thought of the 300 million Tyranny who would never come home. She thought of what mercy meant. And she thought of what justice meant. "No mercy," she said. Her voice did not shake. Seok nodded once. The screen went dark. 1 year later, Yuna stood in the rebuilt Tyranny capital. New buildings rose from the ashes. New children played in new parks. Life was returning, slowly, painfully, but surely. She was an ambassador now, representing her people to the Galactic Council. She had worked hard to rebuild, to heal, to help her civilization find its way forward. She had done good things, but sometimes, late at night, she remembered Kalo's prime. She remembered the Emperor's face. She remembered the silence that followed. She did not regret her choice, but she would carry it forever. On her desk sat a small frame, a gift from Captain Seok. Inside was a piece of paper with words written in an old human language. "Si vis pacem, parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war." The wake had disappeared after the war ended. Returning to their hidden moon in the darkness between stars, they took no payment, asked for no recognition. They simply left as quietly as they had come. But everyone knew they were still out there, watching, waiting. The Galactic Council added a new amendment to Resolution 77B. It was short and clear. Section 12. Any species that involves humans and armed conflict does so with full understanding that the Galactic Council will not intervene, mediate, or offer protection against the consequences. Humanity fights to extinction. Theirs or yours. Choose wisely. Across the galaxy, wars became rarer. Empires thought twice before attacking their neighbors. Species that had bullied others for centuries suddenly found themselves being very polite, because now everyone knew the truth. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the smartest or the most advanced. But when they chose to fight, they did not stop until the fight was over. And in the silence of space, among the stars that had watched civilizations rise and fall for billions of years, a new kind of peace settled over the galaxy. Not the peace of understanding or cooperation, the peace of fear, and perhaps, Yuna thought as she looked up at the night sky, that was the only peace the galaxy had ever truly understood. Somewhere out there, Beyond the light of any sun, Captain Seok sat in his small room on the dead moon. He was drinking tea, reading old books, tending to the small garden that Hannah had helped him plant. He did not think about the war. He did not think about the lives he had taken or the civilizations he had ended. He thought about the tea and the books and the plants growing slowly toward artificial light, because that was how humans survived. Not by forgetting what they had done, but by choosing to live anyway, by finding beauty in small things, meaning in simple moments, hope in a universe that often seemed hopeless. He finished his tea and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems, perhaps new wars. But tonight he would rest, and the galaxy would keep its distance.